Okay.
You just get her in.
Yes. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 21st meeting of the Village of New Paltz Planning Board. Tonight we have a full agenda, and so in the interest of getting our earlier applicants through quickly, we're going to do a slightly different format, beginning with our administrative business, then doing public hearings and determinations for our first three smaller applications, followed finally by the public hearing for the Huguenot Historical Society project. So please bear with us as we finish our regular business.
Sorry, John, apologize
Yes.
for interrupting it. Just we need to. Rachel, can you turn your camera on? We need to be able to see her for her to participate. We can't just do it by voice.
Understood.
There we go. All set.
Okay, great. Tonight we have Duncan Dempsey sitting in for our regular member Maureen Natrella. To begin with, I see there are no updates to the minutes. Is that correct?
No, because of the email system.
Were there any updates from the Environmental Policy Board this week? Rachel, do you have anything from the Environmental Policy Board you want to share?
I was hoping that Dan would be there at the meeting. Is he not there? From the environmental board? Yes, so Dan, why don't you, since you're there in person and you're on the board, why don't you give an update, tell them what went on at the meeting and go ahead and introduce yourself as the new member of the board who has finally made us have a quorum.
Hi, I'm Ben Sheridan. I recently joined the Environmental Protection Board for the Village of New Paltz. One of the things we covered in our last meeting was native tree suggestions for the parking lot outside of the convenient deli across from the school. We are also talking about a native plant initiative and an invasive plant management plan. And we also approved funding for a rat-proof composter outside of the pre-food bridge.
Great, thank you. Are there any updates from our Director of Planning and Zoning? Mike?
Yeah, first, I'd like to apologize to the board, to all the applicants and to the public. The village Google system and email system has been not working now for 12 days. We hope in the very near future we'll be back up and running. It's a long, sad story why it's not working, and I could go into it with you later if you'd like. But I just wanted to extend those apologies from the village. It's made everybody's communication very difficult. So thank you for your understanding.
Thank you. Were there any updates from the Village Board, Ulster County Planning Board, or County Planning Board?
None to report.
Okay. Thank you. And moving on, is there anyone here tonight that would like to make a general public comment, not regarding one of the applications that is on the agenda later? This is the general public comment meeting. Okay. Do we have anything?
No.
Okay. Then moving on to our first hearing, I get a motion to open the public hearing for PB 2607 37 Prospect Street.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Would anyone like to make a comment on 37 Prospect Street? All right, in that case, could I get a motion to close the public hearing for PB 26?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Our next public hearing, PB 2608. Could I get a motion to open the public hearing for this application?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Would anyone like to make a comment on 6 Grove Street? Seeing none, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
608. All in favor?
Aye.
And could I have a motion to open a public hearing for PB 2605?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone like to make a comment on 186, 194 Main Street? If not,
Maybe we'll hold that one open only because we got county planning board comments.
I saw that.
And we also got information from the HPC.
okay,
You could always, when you're reviewing the application, if you decide you have enough, you could close it at that time later.
okay, great, let's do that. We'll,
Just do a motion to hold it open.
okay, could I get a motion to hold the public hearing open for PB 2605?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then moving on to our first application review, 37 Prospect Street. Can you please come up? You're here. Hello. You get a chance to look at the approval?
Yeah, I was
resolution?
just reading it, as I was
Okay,
just now.
great. Any questions?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward one. We don't have any specific conditions on this, so if the board is comfortable, doesn't have any comments, I'd like to get a motion approving the site plan for 37 Prospect Street.
So second.
And could we have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Duncan,
Yeah, I.
Nikki,
Aye.
Terry,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
and Zach.
Aye. That's very great. Yes. we
Thank
will
you very much.
get that signed
Have a
and
good night.
back to you soon.
Thank you.
Enjoy your back.
Next, we have PB 2608, 6 Grove Street, come up. Great. And do you have any questions about your resolution of approval? Nope. Okay, again, there were no specific conditions. Straightforward here. Could I get a motion to approve site plan for 6 Grove Street?
So moved.
Second. And could we have a roll call vote for this one as well?
Sure, Duncan,
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
Terry,
Aye.
Rachel,
Jesus, aye. Aye. All right, we'll get that to you. Away.
Seconds mute.
Awesome. All right. Next, do we have PB 2606, 5 Platical Avenue?
for the board, I did not print it, but we received back from the county planning board, no county impact statement.
Great. So, were there any questions on your resolution approval? All right. And this. Does this resolution then like remove some of the
Yeah, it's in the resolution of approval, it's,
other findings?
Yeah.
Okay.
it's right above the specific conditions, it mentions the 2 that are removed.
Okay, great. Does the board have any questions about this one? If not, could I get a motion to approve the site plan for 5 Flag Hill Ave?
So moved. Second.
And we have a roll call vote, please.
Duncan,
Aye.
Vicky,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Rachel, we lost Rachel, so we won't go to Catherine vote,
Okay,
and Zach.
aye. Hopefully she jumps back in shortly. So you are approved, you have your resolution, we'll get that signed over to you.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Next, could we have PV 2605, 186, 194 Main Street?
And she back in. Great. Hang on one second. Rachel,
Yes,
we took the vote for the sideshow. Were you in favor of that?
it's fine. I,
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay,
Sorry.
enough.
okay, something must happen with the internet because we lost the signal briefly.
someone tried to call me and it booted me off.
Okay.
I put the do not disturb thing on my phone, so maybe it won't happen again.
Great. So did you receive the Ulster County?
Yes,
Board
got that
comments?
this afternoon. A little surprised at how extensive their recommendations were. And I was hoping to get a little feedback from the board in terms of how much of that we'd really be looking for, or if there was some flexibility on some of the items. Yeah, I just know the owner wasn't anticipating as much site. I mean, they referred to it as redevelopment, and we didn't really see it as that. You know, we're just trying to work on the side of this building. And, you know, of course, we're gonna do some other recommended items, but the list is fairly long here, and we just wanted to see what the board's view was on that.
So the first item was this issue with the 2 existing curb cuts. I guess they are recommending eliminating one of these. And potentially restricting left-hand turns from that.
Yeah, and of course, that's all up to the DOT as well. Yeah, I mean, that would have to, I don't have no idea what they would want to see
They're
there.
restricting left hand onto Manheim or onto 32 or both?
No, I think they're restricting left hand into the property from either direction. This is how I read it, at least. It was a little convoluted to read what they were looking
So
at
it's
there.
egress.
I think it's, especially, I think they were looking at from Main Street. In other words, if you're heading west on Main Street, if you're heading west on Main Street, they want you to go onto Manheim and then into the parking lot
Okay.
instead of turning off of Main Street, which that in itself isn't a very, large issue.
Isn't
But
that what most people do on that?
probably that's what most people do because it would be, difficult to do it otherwise.
Yeah, if you were to restrict those, besides the DOT agreeing, the village board would also have to amend their highways law to add, so if this board decides, they would have to amend their law to add that to the list in the village code for no left-hand turn.
Yeah.
And
And they would have to do it like full stop for the entirety of the village or?
No,
They-
just
They would
for
just
this
do it
particular
for this
location. yeah.
location?
Yeah, they would have to amend because in order for the sign to be enforceable by the New Paltz Police Department, it has to be in the village code.
But then they would just be.
But they would not do that unless, if the DOT would be the first step. If the DOT agreed, well, first step would be this board. Second step would be the DOT, third step would be the village board. So,
But I guess my bigger question is, it would be just a spot. This is like a spot law for this particular.
for this
it'd be
particular
site
intersect,
specific.
this particular property,
Okay.
correct? Yeah, they have to name the location where these exist, these no left turn signs.
And if the board didn't want to require that,
You can override it with a super majority, which is a four votes to override.
I mean, would the applicant be open to reducing it from 2 curb cuts to 1 curb cut, just to have one in?
Well, I had a brief discussion with my client this afternoon about it, and he wasn't too hopeful that he wanted to do that. It sounded like he didn't want to have to do that, especially involving the DOT, because we don't know what the time frame is with that. And it seemed like, you know, we weren't looking to redevelop the entire site here. We were just looking to update the facade of the building a bit. Of course, we don't mind doing some plantings and things like that and whatever is recommended there. But to have to go to the DOT and rework the entire entrance and egress of the site seemed a little excessive for what we were planning on doing. Then that was his take on it. So unfortunately, he couldn't be here this evening, but
Yeah.
that was a conversation.
Did you receive the tree planting recommendations from Shade Tree?
I have not yet.
No, Rachel, they may have been emailed to me. I did not receive them either because of the whole email system, so we will have to get those.
Right. But we're fine with that, too, whatever they want to recommend in terms of trees, you know, we'll certainly take a look at what they have to say.
Sure.
I think it's reasonable to say something about no left hands onto the street, because that is, I think, someone said before that that's a crazy thing to do.
Right.
But there are an increasing amount of people who aren't from the area who might try to do something like that.
Mhm.
And they might not be familiar with the flow of traffic, so including something like that, just onto Main Street, I
Mhm.
don't necessarily agree with the South Manheim. It might not be a bad idea,
Right.
but I understand that could lead to a lot more work for you.
Mhm. Well, and main unknown there is what would the DOT really request? I mean, I know the county is saying remove one of them. But what does the DOT have to say about that? I've been down that road before, not recently, but in the past, and it could substantially change what they're looking for there. I have no idea what they would request. I haven't met with them yet, because, you know, obviously we just got this today, so I don't even have an inkling as to what they might be looking for. That I'm not sure that they would agree with the county necessarily on this is the best course of
Right.
action that they would want to see. So it's kind of an unknown for me at this point.
Mike, did you have some?
Well, I was gonna say, so what Lee is saying is correct, that, you know, the DOT would have the first, decision on it. If they either don't think it's warranted or wouldn't require it, then if that's the sort of automatic out of it happening, because if the DOT doesn't allow it to happen, it can't happen.
But how long did it take to get the DOT to that?
Well, they could, the length is in getting an approval from a design plan. We could potentially get, an answer in an email as soon as we get it back up, of a yes or no, we think it's,
And if you get a yes, we think it's worth it, but this board still consider
This board
it to do
still-
a super majority override.
they could, but, you know, my feeling is we should maybe consider that sooner rather than later, because if they say yes, then the applicant is gonna move through the process of designing it. And if this board is ultimately gonna say, well, you don't need to do that, we should probably let them know before they go through that process.
Fair.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question about the Ulster County Planning Board. Did they do any kind of analysis of traffic accidents? Volume, turning at
So
all?
the,
And if they did, where is it?
so the Ulster County Planning Department, is also the Ulster County Transportation Council. They have all the data for every roadway in Ulster County, at their fingertips. They do not normally, full disclosure, I'm the chairman of it, but I recuse myself on these applications. I don't speak as the chairman. I'm just speaking as, the planning director here. So they have all that data. They do not normally provide all that data back. They can, if we ask them for more information, they will be happy to provide it for us. But they are following their normal policy guidelines, which are in heavy traffic corridors to eliminate a left turn out and left turn in, which ends up crossing another lane of traffic. So they're not basing this specifically on crash data. They are trying to alleviate the stoppage while somebody's sitting there waiting to make a left turn in, which then backs up traffic, and the proximity to the signalized intersection. Yeah,
Well,
I mean, I can,
I mean, the Ulster County Planning Board are looking, moving this down the line a little bit. This could cost this applicant an enormous amount of money to do this, an enormous amount of time. Because as we all know, the state doesn't move very fast. And the state transportation department, which is much bigger, has much more data, many more engineers than the Ulster County Transportation Department. 9 times out of 10, they will say things like, and I'm going to paraphrase here, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They use this all the time. You want to lower a speed limit? You can't lower the speed limit. Why? Because the motoring public is used to the current speed limit and we're not going to change that. Well, the motoring public is completely used to these intersections. I agree, Duncan, there are people from out of town that come and use it. But the vast majority of people who use that shopping center are people who are from the area, are very familiar with it. The traffic engineers of the state will say, well, people are very used to this. We shouldn't change it. We've seen 2 traffic studies that I'm aware of on that 299 road that included crash data. None of them mentioned this area as being the highest. The highest, by the way, is further to the east than all of this. No one in that process ever said, oh, these 2 egress and access visas coming out of this shopping center could be a problem. Well, look,
okay.
I've said
I
enough.
thought you were done.
I don't, at this point, I don't need to see the data from the Ulster County Planning Board. Unless we get to the point where my colleagues feel that we want to go down a road that causes this applicant to do design, then the Ulster County Planning Board will probably have to provide me a complete analysis of how they came to this. And I may ask them, not us, I may ask them to go to the state and ask the state to tell them their opinion of this whole thing.
So
If you sense my frustration with the Ulster County Planning Board, yes. What? I don't know how you could submit something to me like this. It's, oh, by the way, why don't you just eliminate a curb cut
Right.
in someone's personal property with nothing? Look at this, there's a few paragraphs here.
And I would understand it if we were substantially changing, the use of the site or.
I'm with you,
or
100%.
or the nature of how the site is working.
I mean, the typical traffic
Then I
study
would
for something like this would be well over 100 pages.
I know. Yeah.
And this. Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
I think, We're all-
Just if I can just answer, Sue.
sure,
They do have the same data that the DOT has, but I'd just like to point out, the whole setup is anything that must be referred to the county must be. It's set up so the local boards can choose to override it by a simple majority plus one, which means 4 people of this 5-member board have to vote to override it. It can be done easily. They are always looking to try to make improvements, and, you know, I'll leave it at that, but it's just,
Well,
I've been on the board for 17 years, Terry, and I'd be happy to talk offline.
I don't mean.
No, I don't wanna talk offline about anything. Look at all these people here that are here because we have public business to do. We should do it right here. Okay.
Well, I tried to
Can we
explain
call a vote?
how they do.
Yes, yeah, let's take an idea.
Okay.
Vote on whether you would like to override this.
I think that the board in general is in agreement. If this was a new application, a new project, I think it would be very different. We'd be looking at all of this much more carefully. I think this time I'd like to get a motion to override the required modification from the UCPB.
Zach, can I just
this
ask,
one.
are you doing both?
Yes.
Cause there's a lighting one.
Let's just vote on this first
Okay.
one,
Okay,
and then we can quickly discuss the other ones. So, yeah, can I get a motion for that, please?
So,
Second.
And all in favor?
I,
Alright,
I think that should be a roll call.
oh, okay. Considering it's, we need a super majority,
Yeah.
let's.
Roll call?
Roll call, yeah.
Duncan,
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
Terry,
I,
Rachel, Zach,
Aye.
okay.
Um,
I
okay,
think the lighting is addressed because I believe it is full cutoff. I think
yeah,
it was a mistake.
moving on, do you have comments about the lighting? They're required modification.
No, that's fine. We can provide the photometrics that they were looking for, if that's what the board wants to see. It should be pretty straightforward. We don't have a lot of lighting that we're proposing, so
Okay,
I don't have it obviously now, but we certainly can provide that.
yeah, I think if you could provide that, that would be great. We'll take a look at that. On the signage, is
Yeah.
there an updated signage?
Well, that was a little confusing to me because we weren't proposing any changes to the signage.
That it was difficult to understand from the original site plan, which is what they received. So the answer could simply be that the signage is not being changed. It is being removed and restored back. So that could be the answer. You don't have to override it then. You just have to have an answer to the required modifications.
So I think that's fine with me, if we could just explain that to county board. And then lastly, on sustainability, see you're using LED lighting. Is there anything else that you would highlight to the board that you're doing in terms of?
Well, just having received this today, we haven't really considered anything. I mean, just doing facade updates, we weren't really gonna dive into the structure of the building or really change anything substantially there. I could discuss it with the money client and see if there's something he's willing to do, but I know we weren't considering anything like that, just because we just saw it as a
Yeah,
facing really.
understood. I think in that case, I would suggest that the board overrides that required modification and says the existing changes are enough.
Did you want to vote on?
Yes, so could I get a motion to override the required modification?
so move.
Second.
All in favor, can you do a vote for that as well, please?
Yep, Duncan,
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
Carrie,
I,
Rachel,
Aye.
back.
Aye.
Oh, I know you haven't gotten the recommendations from Shade Tree yet, but I do know that they're recommending a reduction in the number of parking spaces and the addition of a couple of trees. Just so you know.
All right, send that over to us and we'll take a look at that. Sure, better.
And Zach, we did skip over the one advisory comment, so the board's not required to do that, but I want to be sure.
Was that under the access?
Yeah,
section?
yeah, it's under the access,
Okay, I mean. Oh, without the other required modification, I'm not really sure how that applies.
yeah.
Right, there's one.
I don't see how that applies to the applicant whatsoever. I,
Do we have to vote to
No,
override that?
No.
Okay.
Oh, the advisory. Okay.
the advisory,
Yeah,
it's just that.
got it. Okay. Were there any, there were also some comments from the HPC?
Oh, yes, we did
They're
meet
in
with them.
They're in the back.
And that was largely positive. They liked what we were planning on doing. They did have a couple of requested modifications, which we made. We're going to show that to them on their next meeting. It was really just reducing the steps in the facade a little bit, so it wasn't quite as tall. And that was really about it. They did want to see a colored rendering, which we are in the process of working on now, so we'll have that prepared for them for their next meeting. And some additional material samples and cut sheets and things of that nature. We had some with us, but they asked them for some additional, so it seems like we're, heading in the right direction with them as well, so. Other than that, I don't have anything else to offer tonight.
Yeah, were you considering their recommendation for the different materials?
Yes, the owner's gonna get some samples. We're talking about using some composite instead of what the owner wanted to use, which is fine. He's agreeable to that.
Okay.
And we're also gonna give them a couple of options in terms of the wood siding, whether it be a board batten style and more of a horizontal. Just to give them some options to take a look at there, and the owner's agreeable to either one, so that should all work itself out.
Okay,
All right.
yeah, so we'll see the rest of the materials next time and hopefully be ready to close public hearing and get it done.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
All right. Moving on, I'd like to get a motion to open the public hearing for PB 2515. Historic Huguenot Society.
so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Before we begin, I'd like to just remind everyone that there are quite a few people here tonight that would like to make their voices heard. We're asking everybody to keep their comments to 3 minutes or below. Please, if you're hearing lots of people before you repeating the same items, consider removing that from your comment and focusing on the new items so we can have the full picture. And I'd also say that this public hearing will be held open. There will be additional opportunities to for your input. If someone doesn't get to speak tonight, you will be able to do so later. And please send any comments in writing to the building department. I don't know, should I recommend the current email or?
Either,
Are those getting lost? Are they being stored somewhere? You just don't have access to them?
I don't have any idea.
Print it out and put it in the mail.
Yeah, I would suggest either printing it and mailing it, or drop it off here, or drop it off to the clerk's office.
Yeah,
Would be the 100% guaranteed way of getting it to us. We hope the email system will be up and running in the very near future, but it's a day-to-day thing right now.
yeah. Understood. So we had a sign up sheet. If we're going to read off that, if someone has not signed up and would like to speak, we can put it out there again in a little while.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, on behalf of the applicant, we
Yeah.
thought it would be appropriate if Huguenot Historical Society would give a brief presentation to members of the public to put the project in context. It's been around for a while, but to refresh everyone so their remarks might reflect the latest and greatest.
Sure, yeah, if you have just a brief. overview.
How brief is brief? Yes. How brief is brief? 5 minutes.
Groundhog.
I'm sorry, but. Seriously.
magnitude of the impact matter, because if it does, then they are. Look at me, like, somebody said, like, oh, it's too hard, it's not like, I'm not gonna talk to them, and I don't want to.
You can say I agree.
I agree. No, I understand. Please make your mind. Yeah. I'm very,
I do apologize for any redundancy for you guys, because I know you've heard it, but we also know the public hasn't. They haven't had a public hearing for planning yet, so we did want to go over the context of the project and the changes that we have made.
People in the public really need to be silent if possible, because the microphone will pick you guys up and not pick up the people at the table. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
So basically, we just want to emphasize that stewardship is really at the heart of our mission, and that we're also becoming an award-winning educational institution that's chartered by the state education department. And while all of our offerings were accommodated within the historic structures on the 10-acre site for many years, these stone structures are really unsuitable for modern museum functions and visitor needs. The wear and tear that occurs is counter to our mission. The structures are physically inaccessible under current ADA standards, and the houses offer poor, wildly fluctuating environments inappropriate for collection, storage, and care. We've been planning this project for 10 years. We've been evaluating the situation on the site, and we undertook several detailed studies with federal funding and highly qualified consultants. They concluded that the best course of action to meet the needs of the historic homes, collections, and the public would be to convert Dale Hall into a modern, environmentally controlled storage facility, and to begin planning for a separate facility oriented towards education and visitor services. We undertook a master site plan with a renowned architectural firm that designed the facility at the FDR National Historic Site, and they concurred with the findings of the NEH-funded studies and proposed relocating many of our public-oriented functions into one newly constructed facility. As part of that master planning process, the architectural firm identified how museum functions were allocated across 28 structures that totals 45,000 square feet of existing spaces on the site. The proposed space in the new center is just 16% more than existing programming department functions. It was also that firm that recommended the education center be located so that the first thing visitors would encounter would be four of the iconic stone structures on the site. The proposed center is not an expansion of services, but rather an effort to modernize and consolidate museum functions, core to our mission, from unsuitable locations, and to better interpret the site's complex history. In an April 19th email, this is very new even for this group, I think, to Director of Planning Baden and Chair of the Planning Board Bielecki, Historic Preservation Commission Chair Tom Olson wrote, "You'd ask to have a general view of the HPC regarding the evolving historic Huguenot Street plan for their visitor center, with caveats and cautions that one, I am speaking principally for myself, but also trying to capture and summarize as best I can the views of the committee. Two, we have not yet heard everything the public might want to say, and that there will have to be more public comment, period, which we will listen to carefully. And three, we have not formally voted, which can happen only after sufficient public hearing opportunities. Here is my sense of how things stand. I think our general view over 3 meetings is that the design is a responsible and thoughtful one, tied to the location and larger region, and based on high quality materials. It appears to meet the needs HHS has identified," end quote. His email goes on to further address scale and location, parking, dating, traffic, and the Secretary of the Interior standards. The proposed facility closely aligns with consultant recommendations for adequate visitor services, a climate controlled gathering space, and much needed exhibition space without overwhelming the site. The center will offer and the public will benefit from new ADA compliant facilities, including the first fully accessible restrooms on the entire 10-acre site, along with connections to the rail trail and year-round program space. None of these activities are new. Prior to the pandemic, programs and events were offered in Dale Hall and tents, but space had to be given over to growing collection storage needs. There are no accessible restrooms on the site, nor could they be added to historic structures. Environmental controls are non-existent for artifacts and manuscripts on exhibit. Program offices are located far from the visitor center in the Du Bois Fort. The museum rents limited space from the nearby church for school groups, depending on availability. Shop inventory is located on the second floor of the fort, making it extremely challenging for shop staff to access. Fundraising galas and large-scale events like the annual New Netherland Marketplace or Independence Day celebrations are held outdoors and under expensive and weather-dependent tent rentals. We strive to benefit the community by making the site available for Juneteenth, trick or treat, winter carnival, the Easter egg roll, and more. HHS is not gated or otherwise closed off to the public, even though the museum receives no town or village funding. HHS has made its restrooms and water available to users of the rail trail and served as a neighborhood park for residents and their canines. All will benefit from the new facility as they do today. Having spent a decade assessing the shortcomings of the site's infrastructure and exploring valuable improvements, our board and staff hope the community members trust that our only intention is to more properly steward this local and national treasure so that it continues to serve the public for another 130 years. This can't be achieved without proactive measures that assure our future sustainability.
Thank you. So I'm going to just,
Oh, that wasn't the presentation?
But just want to go through quickly the changes that we've made in response to public comments.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I think we should move forward with the public.
Yeah, I think.
okay, we have one new piece of information that I think would be helpful to share, and that's what the candle factory looked like.
That, I don't think that's really relevant to this discussion. That's, you know, a historic
Let the board chair
condition
say
that,
please.
you know, that we're not evaluating right now.
Okay. And the rest of the things, I guess, we're not going to be able to get a chance to say, which was,
Well, there will be, after the public hearing, we are having our application review section where we will be discussing a lot more of this, which, you know, the public will hear that as well.
okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may,
You know, we do not have to close the public hearing.
Oh, we won't be close.
I mean, we can listen.
Yeah.
I mean, we can listen to the public tonight. The applicant can come back and address the public while they're here.
And there
2
are,
weeks from now, they can go back with more comments. I mean, it's not the end of the process.
there are
Absolutely.
two
Going back 10
YouTube
years.
videos from February 9th and April 3rd that are hours long of the presentations. So they're on YouTube and the public has access to those.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, do you wanna call up the first
Yeah,
person?
and. Rego, thank you very much. And the last name, Baran?
Yeah, Baran.
Baran, okay.
Good evening. So my name is Brigham Farrand. I'm the executive vice.
And you know, you're talking to the board, not the public, so.
Okay.
Just wanna make sure that it's recorded here.
Sure. So again, good evening. My name is Brigham Farrand. I'm the executive vice president at the Hudson Valley Economic Development Corporation. We're a regional nonprofit. And I wanted to come here tonight. We've been following this project closely to express our enthusiasm and strong support for the development of HHS in this visitor center. First, thank you, Chairman Bielecki and the board for giving me the opportunity. And I have a letter here which we submitted that I'd like to read in. Founded in 1894, HHS is one of the nation's earliest preservation organizations and a vital cultural and educational asset for our region. Its mission to preserve nationally significant structures, steward extensive archives and collections, and educate the public has enriched the Hudson Valley for generations. Historic Huguenot Street is, in fact, the place where New Paltz itself began. The addition of a thoughtfully designed welcome center will not only strengthen HHS's ability to carry out this mission, but also contribute to the long-term vitality of the local economy. The proposed facility directly addresses several pressing needs identified through years of planning and expert consultation. Preservation of fragile historic structures. The stone houses, while invaluable, cannot support modern educational programming or archival storage without jeopardizing their integrity. expansion of the educational opportunities. With more than 20,000 annual visitors and growing demand for school programs, HHS requires dedicated classroom and meeting space to serve students and community members effectively. Improved visitor experience. The new center will provide ADA compliant access, orientation space, gathering areas that enhance engagement in the site's complex and multicultural history. And sustainable growth. By reducing resilience on temporary structures and incorporating energy efficient design, the project balances community needs with sensitivity to the natural and historic landscape. Equally important, the center is being financed responsibly, with the vast majority of funds raised from private donors and with no reliance on local taxpayer support. This demonstrates both the strength of HHS's stewardship and the broad confidence of its supporters. At HVDC, we view projects like this as critical to sustaining the Hudson Valley's economic and cultural vitality. Investments in cultural infrastructure attract visitors, they create educational opportunities, generate local revenue, and reinforce the region's identity as a destination where history, community, and economic growth intersect. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the planning board to approve the plans for the new Education and Visitor Center at HHS. This project represents a forward-looking investment in both preservation and progress, ensuring that HHS remains a cornerstone of the Hudson Valley and, more importantly, the New Paltz community for generations to come. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. The next person, and I have two names, but it says or, so, Henry? Okay.
Much rather look at you. So my name's Andrea Noel. My husband and I and our family have been living here on Huguenot Street for 23, 24 years, something like that. Huguenot Street is a super special place, and I so appreciate what the Historical Society does. As both educator myself and as a member of the neighborhood and as a mother of the I think that what's really important, I mean, so I approve what they do and I love living here. I think what's really important is that Huguenot Street isn't just a historic site, it's part of a neighborhood. And so that means that the feedback from it has to be really obvious the way the plan changes based on the feedback from the neighborhood. I know my neighbors and I know other people, including architects, have some serious concerns. My real concern is that they really meet my neighbors and the town's concerns, but B, mine is, how can you assure me that that space will not be used as a wedding venue? I mean, I really have concern about a wedding venue because there's such a huge opportunity cost. The wedding industry is crazy. My third child's getting married. So I've just been, again, in this kind of a situation. So the cost of not doing that for a nonprofit really concerns me. That's my personal concern. Thank you for that.
The next person signed up is Ann Quinn.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Ann Quinn. I live on Huguenot Street, but I'm not here tonight because I live on Huguenot Street. I'm here because I love Huguenot Street. Those are two very different things. And what I just want to say that it's not that anyone is saying we don't want a visitor center on Huguenot Street. That would be lovely. It would be wonderful to have a visitor center, just not this visitor center. That's what people are objecting to. They're objecting to this business center, visitor center. Why? Because it's too big and it doesn't fit. If I have heard that sentence once, I live on Huguenot Street, so people stop me all the time. Is it still on the table? Whatever. It's too big and it doesn't fit. It's bigger than the 2- and 3-story buildings that surround it. It eclipses this small little piece of open space. It doesn't fit in a 100-year-old little 10-acre community village. It just dwarfs it, you know? And I think in all things, honestly, less really is more. Less is more. More is not more and more and more. Of course, it's going to be used for events. Anyone who's ever made a meal in this room behind me knows the only reason you need a warming kitchen, why do you need a warming kitchen? To keep a large amount of food warm for a large amount of people that are going to eat it a little bit later. That's called an event. Of course, it's going to be used as an event venue. That goes without saying, which is again, more, you know, a whole nother dimension on this little spot here. I think just briefly, I'll end with, I think our grandparents, my beloved grandparents, really knew the value of using what's already there. Use what you already have. What we have is the Deo House, which is this magnificent building at the entrance of the historic, I've lived on Huguenot Street 36 years. At the entrance of the historic district, you know what it looks like now? The blinds are pulled, it's filled with storage, there is no energy, no one there. It's this gorgeous building that if it were restored to its original grandeur, it would be a diamond. And the whole community would be behind this 100%. With gardens and benches, everybody'd be cheering up and down. And anything they want to do in this modern, I mean, I hate to say it, but it looks like the Steak and Stein on Route 9. That's what I always think of. Is like if what they could do with the Deo House would be so compelling, because visitors would be in a historic building, not looking at it. They could see where a family lived and whatever. And I think just to close up, I think what we all know at the end of the day is that Huguenot Street, historic Huguenot Street, is the diamond of this community. It's the heart and the soul of this community, and it's a treasure. And it's one of a kind. It's one of a kind. There's not another one in the country. And once it's been tampered with, changed, trees cut, paving over the, you know, paving over Paradise to put up a parking lot. Once that's happened, there's no do-over. It's done. And forever compromised. And that sickens me, to be honest. So thank you very much for listening and for having us.
Thank you.
Next person is Kevin Cook.
Thank you for having me. My name is Kevin Cook, and I'm a 50-year resident of New Paltz. For the last 15 years, I have been a resident of 57 Huguenot Street, and indeed, I rent my home from HHS. I'm not a paid agitator. I find HHS to be consistently thoughtful and caring landlords, and have frequently commented on the importance of having people continue to work and play on the street, ensuring a quality of living history. I have also been a volunteer tour guide on the street for many years. As both a neighbor and a tour guide, I felt I had a unique perspective to offer, and that is why I have come out tonight. I can tell you with absolute certainty that this proposed visitor center is needed in every way, and that I believe the plans submitted have been done in the most thoughtful manner toward addressing those needs. Trying to skip down so I fit into 3 minutes here. As a tour guide, I wanted to share with you several relevant talking points from my tours. HHS has grown significantly since its earliest beginnings back in 1894, when just one of the stone houses was used as a museum space. The organization had an extremely narrow focus at that time and was primarily interested in the genealogical histories of its original descendants. By the mid-20th century, all the stone houses on the street were made into museum houses, and it made it a destination point for anyone with historic interests, though the stories told generally reflected only those of the original French settlers. Finally, at around the turn of the millennium, the organization adopted a new name, Historic Huguenot Street, and no longer reflecting its narrow, more narrow focus, determined to tell factual and inclusive stories of all those who created New Paltz. In short, Historic Huguenot Street has grown up, When I give tours today, I not only speak of the Huguenot and Walloon settlers who came here, but also of the Munsee Esopus peoples who had lived here for thousands of years prior, and of the hundreds of enslaved Africans brought here against their will, leaving their own indelible marks on our shared history. I speak of religion and government, schooling and architecture, and even furnishings and agriculture. I have found that it is possible to tell the entire American story just by examining what happened on Huguenot Street. We are that lucky to live here. As residents of New Paltz, we share an incredible legacy. In order to ensure that this storied property in the center of our town survives into the next century, we need this visitor center. Kicking the project down the road at this time will only ensure its reappearance in the next 5 or 10 years. As a longtime resident, I believe its site placement will not disturb the park-like atmosphere we enjoy, nor demean the stories of the houses themselves. As an artist, I am not disturbed by the scale or aesthetics of the building. The street will retain its pride of place in our collective hearts and will encourage new generations of visitors to learn about their past. Even as we locals continue to walk our dogs, share picnics, and attend Easter egg hunts on the grounds.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's over 3 minutes.
Yes,
Just
and
wrap
I'm
up.
just finishing up.
Okay.
At present, there is one toilet on the property to use, not a bathroom, a toilet. It will be so nice to be able to direct my visitors to a bathroom. Thank you so much.
That's okay, thank you very much. The next person is Michael, is it Von Dross, D-R-A-S, thank you.
Yes. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Bad handwriting. Good evening, everyone. Hi. Hello. I'm Michael Vondras. Recently joined Historic Huguenot Street as the treasurer back last fall. And the only thing I can add without repeating is my layperson's observations. The administration, the operation itself is crammed right now into historic buildings, some of which are 300 years old. The buildings can't continue to bear up under that kind of pressure. The new building is not too big. Its roof line is below the tree line. In fact, it's not even the tallest building on the property. It'll allow for efficient education space, lecturing, research space. It'll allow some artifacts that are hundreds of years old, that are priceless and irreplaceable, to finally be taken care of properly and not stored in houses. The houses that we see along the street that are packed with storage, that's exactly the point. We want to empty them so that they can be renovated properly and taken care of. Historic Huguenot Street has always been, from my understanding, a great citizen of New Paltz. I can attest, all the board members live in the area and we love New Paltz. This is a beautiful project. And while change is hard, right? Anybody's going to look at the design of the building. Some will like it, some will not. But we don't have infinite flexibility, right? The state authorities want it to be a certain way. It has to have certain accommodations. We've done that. And we've tried to accommodate every request from the community that we can. So with that, I'll stop prattling. We need your support. We love New Paltz, and this will be a beautiful, wonderful addition. Thank you.
The next speaker is Judy, is it Guerin, G-U-E-R-O-N? Guerin.
I'm a long-term resident of Huguenot Street, lived here since 1999. I've seen a street and an organization that has changed over the years. When I got here, it was a weak organization, basically supported by the families. The houses were derelict and falling apart. And most important, Huguenot Street was an industrial street with trucks parked in the sewage treatment plant area, lumbered up the street, dust, noise, and danger. And it told a history that was 12 white families that came from Europe, and that was the history of Huguenot Street. It has not been static. Change is what it's about. And the stewardness and focus of historic Huguenot Street has transformed that. It's created a strong nonprofit and, astonishingly enough, raised the funds to redo the houses. They're extraordinarily expensive. It breaks my heart, but it takes that, and they have done it. They've led the charge in closing the street, which was not uncontroversial. There was a lot of opposition at the time, and it got rid of that truck traffic, which threatened to make Huguenot Street a basic bypass to Route 32. It is now the street we cherish because of the stewardship of that organization leading the charge against opposition to close the street. It saved the Harcourt Sanctuary and finally a treasure to our community, and got it transferred away from it. It can't do everything, to another nonprofit, and oversaw that process. And most important to me, it tells a unique history that everyone in the United States basically can benefit from hearing. The history doesn't start when 12 white families came to New Paltz. It started with an indigenous population, and that the community was built by slave labor living in those houses. And it does this in a moving and comprehensive way that I wish every school child in New York State could hear, and to hear it. They need a visitor center. They need the space to spread that story. And yes, beyond our community, but I think to our whole country. So in short, HHS has been an environmental ally, an education and historical teacher at a time when we in the community, but even more than us, all our visitors really need it. In my view, it is, but we can all differ. It is a tasteful and useful facility. I think they're trying to make it even better, but I'm not the architect of that. And I only say that I want this organization on my side and continuing to fight for this community, which I think will face larger challenges when those 300 or so apartments are occupied on Route 32. And the traffic, I don't know how many there are, but when the traffic from that comes by, I want them helping us fight to make sure that they do not come on Huguenot Street.
Thank you.
The speaker is Michael Zierer, excuse me.
Thank you, planning board, for your service to the community, and thank you to HHS for all that you do for New Paltz. My name is Michael Zieler. I'm a village resident of 30 years. I live off of Huguenot Street in the historic zoning district. For the benefit of HHS's consultants, I've served as deputy mayor, village planning board chair, and as a member of the village's historic preservation commission and design review board. I'm gonna get a little wonky. Everybody else has been at 30,000 feet. The rationale that HHS made tonight and has made in the past is sound as to why they need a visitor center. I'm not opposed to the development of that. My concerns are on several details related to the current site plan, and to ensure that you, the planning board, understand the tools and resources you have as you deliberate and work through the application and through seeker. I greatly appreciate the reduction in paid parking spaces that they've in the current site plan, but I remain unconvinced about HHS's data and comments that they need an entrance on North Front Street and that long driveway. Fire trucks already have multiple access points to get to the proposed visitor center via roads they currently use. To access the rest of HHS's property, buses currently use Broadhead and could continue to do so should the new visitor center be built. Based on the latest site plan, it appears that access to what they call reinforced grass as needed parking spaces would also be available from Broadhead. I understand they might need to reconfigure the lot in order to allow buses to get through there, but that's doable in weighing the benefits and potential negative consequences on North Front Street, this entrance and driveway, I ask you all to consider how that section of North Front Street is currently used, the impacts that it will have on Town and Country Apartments, on the proposed proximity of the entrances, proximity to the rail trail, to the amount of traffic, which is significant, that already travels north on Huguenot from Main Street, and then uses this section of North Front Street to get to North Chestnut. Consider the public parking spaces on this section of North Front Street, the driveway across the street at Town and Country, and the many people who walk and bike along this section. I think all of these things will be impacted and likely negatively impacted. In addition, the applicant has not made it clear how they'll prevent drivers from using this as a cut through when their gates are proposed to be open, which would likely be open much of the day, 7 days a week for at least much of the year. Not only would this potentially impact negatively the community along Broadhead, it could negatively impact the visitor experience on Huguenot Street. Regarding seeker, do I have a little time?
Yeah.
Okay. Regarding seeker and your evaluation of the project's impacts, in discussing community character, which you brought up at your last meeting, an attorney for HHS, Mr. Gottlieb, referred to the DEC's FEAF workbook. I'd like to note that in its discussion of that question 18 about community character, it asks you, is the proposed project inconsistent with the existing community character? And it continues that you will first need to determine what is the existing community character. Contrary to what Mr. Gottlieb said and would like you to believe, our community character is more than what is allowed by zoning. You do need to consider zoning, you do need to consider our comprehensive plan, but you should also, as the DEC says, discuss and articulate what is the current community character of our village, and in particular, the neighborhoods, residences, commercial uses, and public resources that are proximal to this proposed facility. I probably.
Okay, we're running out of time.
Yeah, so I'm gonna.
I do hope that you come back and.
I will submit the rest of this as well.
Thank you.
But
Yeah.
Next speaker is Alan Ross.
Good evening, Chair Malky, members of the planning board. My name is Alan Ross. I live in the village and I work in the village. I'm a local architect. At the first public hearing last September, I expressed a number of concerns regarding the proposed visitor center. Like many, I understand the need for a new center and feel that it will be a valuable addition to the community. I think we all support historic Huguenot Street and their mission. One of the things I've noticed is that there's a conflation of all the wonderful things a visitor center would do for historic Huguenot Street, for the village of New Paltz, and for the surrounding area, and the particulars of this design. A lot of people have spoken about everything that would be positive about the visitor center. And I think that the last speaker in particular was addressing issues of the specific design characteristics that are not beneficial to the community. So after the fervent and thoughtful public commentary on the proposed design, ADG Architects made some modest modifications, but not enough to address the initial concerns. Most importantly, the building is located in the center of the green space that's so important to the urbanism of the historic site. As pointed out by many of the design professionals critiquing the design, the building would be better located along Broadhead Avenue, adding to the historic streetscape and following the established pattern of urbanism, that is, buildings close to the road with open space behind. The proposed site plan is dominated by driveways and parking. The parking should be further reduced, and the access road off of North Front Street should be eliminated in order to preserve the existing green space. As proposed by many others, solutions like shared parking and pedestrian access should be carefully considered. The proposed building is still oversized. It should be smaller and lower. Rather than being a massive beacon drawing attention to itself and dominating the site by compromising the existing open space with its mass and extensive parking, The building should be stitched into the urban fabric as a subtle complement to the historic landscape. The new visitor center is necessary and has the potential to enhance and preserve those qualities that make Huguenot Street so uniquely special. And as many of the developer center speakers have said, we do need accessible toilets, we need storage, we need modern facilities. The programs and facilities will expand HHS's operations in ways that will benefit the entire community. It is imperative that the architectural design and site planning rise to the occasion. The current proposal does not. I encourage the planning board to request revisions to the proposed design to address these critical concerns. This is a great opportunity for New Paltz, and this is our chance to get it right. Thank you.
Next speaker is Brenda Luna.
Thank you very much. Well, of course, I concur very much with the last speaker. But I have a few things that I would like to include. At the last meeting, the chairwoman of the Board of Trustees is also a wonderful fundraiser. And as someone who has spent a lot of time understanding how funders like to fund places, they like big spaces, they like shiny things. They don't like our village. They like shiny things to put their names on and wanting to be. So often these big projects are supported by people who are, their money has to come in from somewhere. I know it doesn't come from me. So I ask, really, though I live at Town and Country and I'm very much a part of the Huguenot scene, I'm also a person who's lived in this area, on this mountain, in this town for 50 years. And it has a soul. It has a very definite soul. And I think although we need a visitor center, as what has been suggested by this fundraiser, that the Interior Department said this was a wonderful site and architecture. Well, we are not the Interior Department. We are New Paltz people. And we have a character. And we've been watching it being dissolved piece by piece. And there's not much more we can stand. There's not so many more people, so much more traffic, so much more of anything that this town can stand to maintain its character. So I would suggest that the board take a wide look at how much this town can take of development, and let's bring towards as many people as we can get. Maybe we have to think carefully about the size of our buildings, the size of our parking, the size of how many cars, how much we want to have our character changed. Thank you.
Whoa. The next speaker is, and I apologize, I can't read the handwriting, it's Rob. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you, board, for serving the New Paltz community so well over the years. It's really appreciated. Firstly, I'd like to say that I am not against change. I think change can do a lot, but it depends on what the change is, how it's implemented, and what the change hopes to accomplish. And that is why I am here, because I am still greatly concerned about the proposed new visitor center for New Paltz located on the green space between Broadhead Avenue and North Front Street. I have lived on Huguenot Street since 1994 and thoroughly enjoyed the very special environment and peacefulness of the area. I live at Town and Country condominiums. It is so relaxing and removed from the noise of everyday life. Taking walks on Huguenot Street as well as the rail trail is enormously refreshing and adds so much to the quality of life. I love the community of New Paltz and the wonderful place it offers to so many people. The proposed plans for the new visitor center will change all that. Huguenot Street, as we know, is the oldest continuously inhabited street in America and is a National Historic Landmark. The street was closed, I think it was, 15 years ago or something, to traffic, specifically to preserve the historical buildings on Huguenot Street so the vibrations of traffic would not damage the buildings. That was the reason that the older section of Huguenot Street has been closed. The size of the new building, 7,734 square feet, an education center, additional 85 parking spaces, will greatly damage our environment, quality of life, and the historic integrity of the area, which is the very essence of what our community has known and loved for so many years. The proposed road between North Front Street and Broadhead Avenue will be a clear and present danger due to the current vehicular, pedestrian, and cyclist traffic from the Town and Country condominium exit and entrance, as well as from Huguenot Street. There are 147 households residing at Town and Country condominiums, just to let people know how many people that are using that area, in addition to other people that use Huguenot Street. I am wondering if a traffic study was proposed or was done. I think that would be essential. I urgently request the proposed plans for the new visitor center not be approved as is. Change should bring about enhanced living, and the proposed plan, the way it is at this time, does not. I request that you please save our precious Huguenot Street.
Next person is April, is it Bisa? Bisa.
Hello, it's nice to see you all here today. My name's April Bisa. I'm a professor of archaeology and anthropology at Vassar College. I am a registered professional archaeologist, which means I uphold the highest standards of my profession. And if I'm found guilty of not holding up those standards, I could be removed from a professional archaeologist. I'm also one of the newer members on the board of Historic Huguenot Street. So the thing that I could add that isn't what nobody else can add so far. This is the phase 1 archaeological survey for the current proposed site. I think I'm the only one in this room who has read every archaeology report ever written, every document ever made for Historic Huguenot Street. And this is the place that will have no impact on the archaeology of Historic Huguenot Street. If you put the visitor center on the street, you will impact possibly burials, all sorts of historical record, what is left of the Native American village that was there. I'm sitting there looking at your village seal that clearly is celebrating Historic Huguenot Street and the village of New Paltz's history. If you want to protect the Native American landscape, you do not want to put this on the street, right? This location is the lowest archaeological impact that this visitor center could have. I'm not sure if you are all aware of the connections that Historic Huguenot Street has been making to Native American nations, including the Stockbridge Munsee Band of Mohican Indians who call this their ancestral homeland, as well as Munsee Lenape groups in Canada. They're doing amazing decolonial work to bring these connections, to bring indigenous people back to the site, to build the wigwam where the wigwam was, to build a cooking shelter where a cooking shelter would have been. And they're sharing all of that with the community in a form of social justice, in a form of racial justice. So to put it somewhere else might be more convenient for traffic or this or that, but for the history, for the archaeology, for the preservation, this is the place to put it. Dale Hall is very archaeologically sensitive all around that. If you do anything to Dale Hall, you are going to damage the Native American, the African American, and the early settler archaeology that is left at this site. So I encourage you to trust the Historical Society to protect the historic site at that part. One of the things that my first reaction as a board member was that this design has to be different. You do not want to make a fake house on a national landmark site, right? It has to not look like one of the other houses. That would be, people would be confused about what they're seeing. You're giving them something fake that takes away from the fact that this is a preserved historic street, and putting the visitor center on the street would take away from that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
The next speaker is Lisa, is it Further? I thought so, but.
Yeah, Lisa.
Yes.
Hi there. My name is Lisa Berger, 1 Polton Lane, New Paltz, New York. And this has been so interesting because I think I win today. 64 years in New Paltz. So I tell you that. So there you go. I am a resident of the town, not of the village, but I am here tonight with comments that are informed by the work that I do as the director of tourism. So, so many of the speakers tonight really said things that were so eloquent about the way that I feel about historic Huguenot Street as a long-term resident, about how dear that site is to us, about all the experiences we've had there, and that we want to continue sharing. So instead, I'm just going to focus tonight on the importance of a visitor center to the visitor experience, because I don't think anybody has spoken to you about that. So what I am here to tell you is that the accessibility issue is real. This is a huge factor in visitation these days. In fact, the county received a grant to develop accessible tourism, and we're working with a company called Wheel the World to certify places. The design of this building would be certified, which means it's safe and accessible for people of all abilities to come and use it. And I can't understate how important that is to visitation and how much accessible tourism has increased. Secondarily, I'm also here to let you know that heritage and cultural tourism, I'm sure that you guys have heard this maybe from other speakers, right? That the heritage visitor stays longer and spends more money. And that's not just, people saying that. Research backs that up. But what's important for you all to know is that the county itself has invested in the cultural heritage, in cultural heritage and telling the story of arts and culture in Ulster County. This year, my office has a director of arts and culture for the first time. It's her job to work with places like historic Huguenot Street, the D&H Canal Museum, to help tease out the unique stories that they can tell and how it winds the fabric of who we are together and tells a unique story. So those are the things that I want you all to think about and to understand that as you're going through this, you're going to look at access roads, you're going to evaluate parking. This is the job that you're here to do. And that is a job that you should do. And I'm just here as the director of tourism to say that visitors bring $1.1 billion annually into Ulster County. And that having a visitor center where people can go to experience something, be immersed in a subject is not just of interest, it's vital. Last year, when I went to our statewide New York State Tourism Conference, I was lucky enough to be on one of the immersion tours
that went to a state park outside of Canandaigua dedicated to the indigenous people that live there, the Mohawk people. It was fabulous. You have an opportunity to do the same. That's it.
Don? Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, come up, yeah. Hi, so I want to start by saying that I really appreciate all the work that HHS does. I live in Huguenot Street, 118 Huguenot, with my family and 2 young children. And we're here to stay. We love our street so much. I agree with many of the points that were brought across. With the ambitions that HHS has to bring in educational and economic opportunities to the village are so great. I really appreciate the experts that they brought in today. I learned so much about why this location is going to be the best location, about how it's going to be more accessible to everybody and make it more usable, the bathrooms and everything. And many of us here want it to work. We are on the same team. We want Huguenot Street to be preserved and to be accessible. But I'm also very disappointed that all the input we've provided so far has not been really taken seriously. When we first heard about this project, they've really been trying to bring it to the community before going to the boards, and they met with us, the neighbors, explained to us the plans, and they heard our outsized concern around the scale and around the uses of it, around this connector road. And when they brought it to HPC, nothing was really meaningfully changed. It was still the same plan pretty much. So we came again and we expressed our concerns. And if you watch that video from HPC public hearing, you'll see the outsized concerns, and they brought it again to you, and still, unfortunately, not much has changed. And I really believe in their intentions, but I think that their changes has still been not enough, and it's all been surface level. Many changes that they've made, but still surface level. The building is still too large, and the connector road between Broadhead and North Front is still part of the proposal. So it still feels like the same project to us. And I want to be clear, we are supporting, many of us support the visitor center, but it feels to us like the impact this is going to have on us is kind of not taken seriously, and it's kind of brushed off to the side, and that's a little disappointing. So many of the people who came to speak about it in favor do not live on the street. And for example, the traffic study, there was a consultant who said this will not impact the traffic. However, people who spend a lot of time in North Front Street, people who live in town and country, people who work in Augusta, they all said we see accidents about to happen all the time. So we're trusting this consultant. Of course, we trust the expert, but also we've got to trust the people who live on that street, who spend a lot of time, who understand the soul. To understand the soul of this village and this space. It really is like a town square to us. And I understand it's a privately owned by this organization, but it's been a long-standing space in the community, and taking it away without consideration of the impact is going to be really harmful to not just the space, but the relationship between HHS and the community, which is so far really positive, and we wanted to continue that way. So,
Sorry to interrupt, but you're.
okay, so just the last thing, I think that many doubts will be removed if we see this kind of just taken down to 5,000 square foot, not just removed entirely, but can a real scale down of this happen? Keep it in the same location, scale it down. Will that address the uses that they want to use it for? So I really believe HHS can address our concerns and that we can work together on this. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here tonight that would like to make a comment? Okay. Could you please come up and just sign up if you haven't already, and
Oh, I apologize, I missed you.
Then I was thinking, well, maybe I'd get out, but,
So Terry Van Etnick, I live at 28 North Front Street. Why does that matter? It's because I look at the rail trail, I look at the Deo House, and the rail trail's right here, and this is where people cross, and over here is the apartment buildings. And the talk about accidents, that is real. I do my dishes while I'm watching people almost get nailed because nobody slows down at the crosswalk. Why? Because they're cutting through, they don't want to do Main Street. They cut through North Front Street and come on up to make that light. And that's where they speed up. They don't slow down, they speed up. And so you have the apartments, you have Augusta who backs into the road. Her parking lot doesn't, it's a back in to the road. You have our building, which used to be a medical building, now is a acupuncture. You have the karate school. You have the seniors behind us. We're all trying to get out onto North Front Street. And there's parking meters and there's cars on both sides of the street and I can't see anything. And I'm like, I'm not that short. I mean, I'm short, but I'm not that short. And so I'm like trying to see. So anyhow, this is truly a concern. The road from people coming down, the buses and all that, coming down, they're gonna come down North Front Street is my understanding. They're gonna go on up in that blacktop. Then they're gonna come back out on Broadhead. What are they gonna do when they get to the Route 32? Is there gonna be a new light there so these buses can turn left? Or are they all gonna have to turn right? You know, there's right down the block, another light. What's gonna happen? That whole parking situation blows my mind.
Yes.
I just feel like I watch this all the time and it doesn't make me comfortable. And there's not even this increase in traffic. It's just normal every day. So anyhow, thanks.
Yeah. Next person is Greg Cannon.
Good evening, Greg Cannon, 111 Huguenot Street. Thank you very much for your service and your time. I appreciate it. I have far more comments and questions than 3 minutes can possibly accommodate. So I just want to talk about two things that I keep coming back to. Contradictions, if you will. The first one is that HHS has talked a lot about how the houses are stressed, they're old, and they can't accommodate the uses that they're being put to. But the consultant report that was included, I believe is the one they're referring to. When I look at it, what I see are recommendations that in fact, that they disperse activities throughout the existing houses, in addition to building a more modest new visitor center, 5,000 square feet, coincidentally, following on my neighbor. So I'm not sure how that aligns. The consulting report is a go-to reliable source for one thing, but when it contradicts what they're saying now, I'm not sure what to make of it. The other thing that I want to believe, but I'm finding very hard to believe is that they're going to build an $8 million building, probably more. They're going to pave a block-long road across the property. They're going to double the parking. But there's only going to be modest growth in visitors and events. This is completely implausible. We also had the executive director say in the last meeting that they need the building as a revenue source. Well, buildings by themselves don't produce more revenue. People and events produce revenue. It's also true that a lot of the uses that are going into the new building are existing uses being consolidated from elsewhere, which makes sense. But the large couple thousand square feet event space is not, that's, as they acknowledge, happens now under tents. So that's not a permanent existing space that's just being moved here. That's brand new space. And as anybody who looks at that and then looks at the catering kitchen next door, they say they currently do 6 events. I can't imagine if I'm the director of that organization and I have all that new space, I have all that parking, and I've just spent a lot of money on the new building, and I'm already actively marketing the existing site for events and weddings. How are you not going to go ahead and market it and deal with that interest So I urge the planning board to ask those hard questions. I'm sure they've looked at it and they have estimates. What is it going to mean for traffic? What is it going to mean for the neighbors on Huguenot Street? Thank you.
So there's no one else here that would like to make a comment on the Huguenot Street. Okay, one more.
Not so much a comment,
Could
possibly
you
a
please
question.
just come up?
I don't need to come up, I can speak from here and you'll hear me. I see you capture the comments, I would like to make a comment, I'm not ready to make it tonight. Well, I fix that into a written document that I can get from you folks, so I can analyze what my neighbors have said, what Sal has said, and what everybody else.
We have.
Have said, so I can feel I can comment a little bit. I've been out of town a couple of months, so I apologize. I live in 116 for over 40-50 years now, so I'm concerned with what's happening. LaSalle and Marietta are personal friends, and I have nothing bad to say, but I need to analyze a lot of what occurred here tonight. And unfortunately, not everybody speaks as loudly as I do, so I didn't hear everything, but I see it's getting captured, so I'd like to get a transcript. How do I do that?
Absolutely. So all of the recordings are on YouTube. You can watch them there, or the minutes are posted on the village website. I mean, I don't believe a full transcription is there,
The minutes are not a transcript, they are synopsis of what is said.
Yeah.
But the videos, normally they are broadcasted in real time on YouTube, but because of the village Google system, this is being saved to the cloud. It will be uploaded tomorrow to the,
But you won't transcribe it into a written document.
well, you can read it at the bottom, but we do not transcribe.
There are tools online that automatically do that for you from a YouTube video if you want to use those, but we just don't provide that.
And if people submitted comments, if written comments were submitted, those are posted to the Munico Lab.
Right, those are, and I thank the board for keeping, it open for whatever period of time we need. Thank you for that.
What are those comments that were made?
Anybody who has submitted written comments, these are part of the record. These are uploaded into the system. If you spoke verbally, it will be on the YouTube or it will be in the minutes, but it is condensed down. It's not a word for word. We don't have the capability of
But the engineer's comments, LaSalle's comments.
all those, will also be in the minutes.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Can I get your
thank you.
name, sir?
Yeah, Craig Cankles.
Okay.
So at this time, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn the public hearing until our next meeting. So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I missed 2 seconds.
Duncan?
Okay, thank you.
Rachel voted aye.
And could we move on to our application review and have the applicant please come up? I'd just like to ask everyone to please be quiet, and if you'd like to have any conversation,
Okay.
private conversations, take them outside, please.
We are.
I guess to begin. Could we have quiet, plees?
You mean it's adjourned?
And any conversations go outside, thank you. Are there any public comments that you'd like to respond to specifically while more of the public is here?
So what I will say is, Charles Gottlieb, Land Use Council for Huguenot Historical Society from Whiteman, Osterman and Hannah. We took copious notes of all public comments. And what we plan on doing to supplement the record is a few things. One is we will respond in writing to each and every public comment that we heard this evening. A few things to just highlight briefly. There was concerns we heard about traffic, kind of an ongoing theme. So we actually had a conference call. Do you want to wait until?
Please, if people could please be quiet, we can't conduct the meeting.
We had a internal conference call with our team on Monday with our traffic engineer. So there have been a lot of comments that more additional information is needed in our traffic assessment. So Labella Engineering, our traffic consultant, is going to be preparing and submitting a revised and heavily updated traffic assessment that will look at driveway, site distances, related impacts to the town and country development, everything we heard tonight, basically, in addition to what comments we received from the village's traffic consultant from Collier's Engineering and Design. So that's one of the things that's forthcoming. And so what we will do is have a nice clean package for the board to review. I also understand that the board kind of split up in tasks going through the part 2 of the environmental assessment. That is a very good tool that SECRA has both for the planning board and the applicant, because we can start to narrow down what the issues are. Certainly traffic, I just discussed traffic. I think community character is still one. There is a lot of information that I want to submit related to community character that will likely guide your board's decision after you refer with your attorney. So that's all forthcoming. So if there are specific things this evening that you want to discuss, if that we can include in that resubmission package, which I think will get us closer to resolving some of the public comments, because there are some inconsistencies of what was said this evening based what's in our very large application. So that was the goal of tonight, is to try to get those kind of remaining big ticket items to see where we can kind of hone in and start to work towards the finish line.
Okay, great. Well, before we go into that secret part 2, I was wondering if you wanted to discuss or just give us a quick overview of any of the new documents you've submitted or any of the changes that came since the last meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Jason Anderson talk about that. One of the things I do want to highlight before I hand it over to Jason was the very positive feedback that this board received from the Historic Preservation Commission at the planning board's request. So, you know, that process will continue after this board adopts its negative declaration. But that is your agency, and I was reading the mission statement of the HPC prior to this meeting, and it is to make sure that projects are consistent with the historic district community character, right? So you have an agency, an expert agency in your village that has opined on this exact topic. With that said, I'll hand it over to Jason.
And just a quick question from the last meeting or just changes for the public?
Oh,
Because
no,
there's
I
nothing from
meant,
the last meeting. From 2 weeks ago.
okay, there were no additional
There was
submittals.
one submittal that, at my request, I did ask for the document from the Department of the Interior that they were referencing. And they provided both the pages that deal with it, which is printed out in the board members' packet tonight. And then they also provided the full document, which is way too lengthy to print out, but it's online in the Munico app.
Okay,
It's worth noting that this is guidance as well. It's not,
Yeah.
so.
understood. Yeah, we will be looking at that in a minute.
And I believe other than that and the HPC letter, those were the only new submissions since the last meeting.
Okay. So there was one thing that I was looking for that I thought you mentioned was in Munich Collab already, it had already been uploaded, but I couldn't find. I think I and the public would really, it would be beneficial if we had a single memo outlining how this project will be used. There's a lot of concerns about, I know you've said that the use isn't gonna change, it's gonna be just, 2 fundraisers a year. But if you could outline how this is going to be used, how often it's going to be rented out for private events, and you know, how many school trips, school buses are expected to come through in a given school year? I think that would be.
Yeah, we definitely can. So we can provide that. Part of the traffic study is also going to address that when it comes to school buses and things such as that. And just by way of clarification, people are throwing out 6 events, 2 events, as you just mentioned. What currently happens now is between 30 and 40 events from the HHS mission events, plus rentals of 15 to 25 events a year. This is current, not projected. This is currently what's happening, plus the 5 to 6 community events. So somehow there's been a little bit of misconstrued comments. So we can put that in the document that we can provide.
And what I'll say to that end, because Jason alluded to it, is with the uses and the events and so forth, which we will address because it is a hot topic. Those kind of putting the cart before the horse, however you say it, with the traffic assessment. So we really wanted to nail down what that new traffic assessment is going to look like, so we can give you some numbers. One thing I will highlight is, because we heard a lot of comments tonight that this is going to be some sort of wedding factory or just, it's only going to be used for events. What we have to realize is this is a permitted use as a cultural facility, which allows by right accessory events. And so that doesn't mean that the planning board can't condition, you know, if it's related to an impact, what those events look like, based on historical use and maybe some growth. So what we will give you is an analysis of that. What are we doing now, as Jason just alluded to? What is the traffic impacts of the new facility? And then, so the planning board has a clear picture of what the events are going to look like, seasonality of the events, how many events, and so forth.
Okay, great. Were there any other specific questions the board had before we?
I have 2 takeaways from I think general consensus is there's a need, right? But I think the part that I am concerned about with the neighbors is that regardless of whether there's a need, they do not feel listened to. They do not feel that anything's been modified or heard. And so that is something that is a concern to me, that there has been input, there's been dialogue, obviously there's been a lot of engagement, but to not feel heard in your own neighborhood is a really painful thing. So that part, and then following up on Zach's, the usage would be very, very useful, but also like understanding what those 15 to 20 rentals are, because I think a lot of what we've heard is birthday parties or bridal showers, which is very different than weddings. And I can definitely feel and hear the through line of what does it mean to have a new building and a need for wedding venues, and it's not unique to HHS. There's, you know, both sides. One side of Plains Road, the other side of Huguenot Street are feeling, you know, the same thing. They just are a little bit less residential in some respects. So those are my 2 primary takeaways from tonight.
Nikki, I appreciate that, but what I was going to go through tonight so that the neighbors could hear it were all the changes we've made in response to their comments. And they have been significant. The paid parking has been significantly reduced. We have shifted the buildings to protect the picnic grove and, you know, 5 healthy trees. We have reduced the scope of the building. You know,
I'm not disagreeing with you at all. What I'm saying is it's not been heard, and maybe this isn't like the forum to have that discussion.
And that's one of the reasons we wanted to say that tonight. And our lawyer has advised us not to have discussions outside of what we officially present at these meetings. So
that's
because
a challenge.
Because that comes back to bite us, because if there's one little assumption that's made in the meeting that registers with someone and it's not an accurate number, it comes back to hurt us. So we've been advised not to have casual meetings to talk about this. So I'd love to know a forum that we could use, that would get this across, which is why I was hoping tonight, it may not be ideal, but at least it would have addressed what we've done. We've done a lot. And people aren't seeing it because we haven't had a chance to talk about it publicly.
Well, okay, I mean, here's a suggestion, and let me know if this is not workable, but you could put together a single page bulleted list of like the highlights of the differences and distribute it at the next meeting, the next public comment.
Funny you should say that. We were going to distribute something tonight, but we wanted to talk to you about it. We had a 4-page summary of the changes that was very succinct and, you know, I think a takeaway for people to have. It matches everything we've submitted legally.
Right.
So we would love to do that for the next meeting.
So I think that's a great idea, and we wanted to make sure we heard the comments this evening before we kind of put that 1-pager together to make sure it was accurate. You know, the other thing that, you know, we can address, and, you know, while we're blaming things on the lawyer, I might as well go even further, but we have to remember this is private property, right? This code, this village has a zoning code. There are permitted uses that HHS can do on this property as a private property owner with zoning requirements. We meet all the zoning requirements. Quite frankly, we could have a much larger building and still meet the zoning requirements. But we've responded to the community comments and reduced the building. And I think I want to make sure that the legality of that is not lost, right? And that kind of goes back to community character. We don't need any area
Get in
variance.
front of this board, though. Obviously, we still have a secret analysis to do, so you can't just say that it's code compliant, therefore it's consistent with community character.
Well, to our knowledge, there's no variances that are being.
No, and we will provide you, trust me, with a very comprehensive community character analysis for you to review.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, before we go into the full environmental assessment form part 2. There any other questions from the board?
I just, if I may, Mr. Chairman, just a comment. One of the things that struck me during my review of the environmental impact of this project, and I was trying to find it, and I apologize for not appearing though I was not paying attention to you, but I'm trying to find where our engineers, and I believe I read this, to the effect that the project proposes no change to the intensity and frequency of use at the site. Am I missing something? Did you write that somewhere?
We had corrected that because we said we couldn't honor no change. We said no substantial changes, and it hasn't been maybe filtered through the cracks. I can't answer what.
Where would that be written? Where would I find that?
So where it was originally written was in the original traffic letter.
Okay.
Then there were comments received. There was a secondary traffic letter that corrected it. And that's where I think the 6 events some people have mentioned was in that original traffic memo.
So this is, the corrected traffic letter is from your consultant to you?
To
the board.
And, well, to us.
Yeah.
But it's your consultant that said something different.
And I think what the traffic assessment that we're gonna provide, and please, your input is wildly wanted, is events and programs that are happening now, events and programming that might happen in the future, and then what are the potential traffic impacts and assessing traffic impacts and any mitigation.
Terry, to clarify as well, or for the whole board, that the board's consultant reviewed that second corrected, if we're gonna call it that, traffic analysis provided by them. So it has been, everything they have provided so far has been reviewed by our consultant.
Is there a way to flag the operative documents for each thing, like when something gets updated.
I put the date on them for the most part, so it's the one with the last, there is no way to flag them.
Maybe it's a feedback to Munico Lab.
Yep.
Then that would be like
Yep.
document management requires operational issues.
We suffer from that too. We can't find things easily on the platform.
I also try to put them at the top of the list as much as possible, so.
I asked for a binder, people said, no paper.
But I will try to do that somehow, Nikki, thank you.
Yeah, and maybe it's Munico Lab just needs to.
I'll talk with them and see, they may have a
Update their
system that I'm
software.
not aware of, so.
And now we're gonna be doing another submission, right? So.
I have a brief comment on those things. I think in regards to what Nikki said about the community not feeling listened to. I think, I second that. I agree with that. And I think when she said it, a lot of the same, I want to say it as insidiously as the word tactics makes it sound, but it's when someone says something and it's responded to with a lot of words that say a lot of jargon, it kind of obfuscates the answer and it gives an unsatisfying response. And I understand that the intentions are very pure. There's a very important need for this village, the visitor center. I don't disagree. I think that is important for the organization and the village. It's just, there's the way the presentation has been made has left a bad taste in my mouth. There seems to be a lot of obfuscation and a lot of jargon and a lot of speaking. And it doesn't really seem like I'm the only one that feels this way. It seems like a lot of the community members feel the same way. And they bring up the concerns and you say you respond to the concerns. And then you continue to say that you responded to the concerns and all of these things. And what was your response to the concerns?
We haven't responded to the community, which is what we thought tonight would be an opportunity to be. I completely agree that from the time we first heard concerns, we have not had a forum to get back on those points, which is exactly what.
And maybe verbally, but the documents clearly do show the response.
Of course.
So you may be saying it sounds like jargon, but no, those documents actually indicate all of the adjustments that have been made. They've documented it in narratives that were done, drawings to try to represent what's in that narrative. So anybody that looks at that can actually see how we have responded. So verbally we haven't because it hasn't been in this form. But through everything that's on the Uniclab, that is where it was responding to.
And the chairman of the HBC did note that we were responsive to the changes from the public hearing they held.
Which is where I got most of those comments.
They were very complimentary of the changes that have been made. So, I don't blame anyone for not wanting to go through all those files that have been submitted, but it is all there.
I think with one last thing, someone did mention the scale of the project being so big, costing lots and lots of money. And they proposed not an increase in usage seems a little, what's the word? Doesn't quite line up. How are you gonna get the money? How are you gonna pay it back? It seems like maybe an increase in the usage would be in your best interest to try to make back the money because buildings don't pay for themselves.
I would just want to, just quickly for the record on that comment, the financials of a private development are not the concern and cannot be any relevant factor whatsoever for the planning board.
Just put your mind at ease. We will not be taking out a mortgage on this property. We're not gonna break ground until all the funds are raised. The cost keeps going up in part because of all the studies and stuff we have to keep doing. And costs keep escalating, so we can't help that the cost is gonna be higher than we originally said, but it's not because we're increasing the square footage.
I shouldn't have mentioned it. I apologize.
Yeah, but the other thing I'd just like to say is that the building itself is gonna limit the number of people that can be in there. You know, for any kind of event, it's roughly 100 people in that. If we have a fundraiser or something, it's roughly 100 people in that room. If we have a lecture, it's more because you can do chairs, not tables. But the building itself constrains our growth. So one of the things we wanted to look at in the traffic study is say, what's the max? How do we max out the building usage? And what does that mean if we max out the traffic? And kind of approach it that way, because it's hard to nail down specific numbers, particularly since after COVID, we've been doing a lot of things remotely, not in person, but we'd like to switch some of those things in person because it's more meaningful to have this, you know, the one-on-one touch. So the building limits and parking limits, you know, I know people can go elsewhere for parking, but there are constraints in the building. Only so many people can fit. And
I will say, as far as constraints go, you know, the planning board does have the ability to put a reasonable condition on the approval, right? As long as it's tied to a demonstrable impact, right? And so if our traffic study shows that 700 events per year, the traffic roads can't handle it, you know, we can't have 700 events per year. Of course, that's an elaboration. But as long as it is tied to an impact, you know, we can work in a negotiated process to figure out what is an appropriate amount of events that works for the planning board in the village, the applicant, and the community. And that's kind of, that traffic assessment is going to start that conversation.
And we agree that it has to be more quantitative, so.
Yeah, well, I think at this time, it would be make the most sense for us to at least get started on part 2, so we can give you some specific areas that might need mitigations. To begin with, who was?
I was.
Who was on?
Sure.
Okay. Or do you wanna?
So,
kick us off?
in support and deference to all the people in the room, and I don't mean to point, excuse me, and also the people who may watch us at some point down the road. I'm gonna go into a little more detail of this than I typically have in the past, primarily because I forgot about you, and I apologize for that. Anyway, this is about the impact on the land. The proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site. Either no or yes. I answered yes. That there will be an impact on the land. The first thing we have to look at is the proposed action may involve construction on land where the depth of the water table is less than 3 feet. Now, I think I tried to review the part 1, and I'm gonna look to the engineer to help me with this, but I think half the site, is the engineer here?
Yes.
Oh, don't go away, come on up. Come. Okay, well, I think it says half the site is poorly drained. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That doesn't mean the water table is less than 3 feet though.
Thank you. So with that in mind, I think this is going to have a moderate impact, in my opinion, because 1/2 the site is poorly drained. Now,
I was leaning towards more like small impact for that one.
I don't think so, Mr. Chairman. The reason I say that is the part of the site that seems to be most poorly drained is the northeast corner. And the northeast corner of this site is, I know is the proposed parking lot off Broadhead Avenue. So if you're gonna build a parking lot in an area that's poorly drained, obviously we gotta do something. Either build it up do something. I don't know what.
Just a question, is that moderate related to the water table question or
It says, the proposed action may involve construction on land where where depth to the water table is less than 3 feet.
It's 1A.
right, but where's the poorly drained coming into? And I'm only saying this because at the last meeting, I suggested you have your engineer, Colliers, run through this. Because these are very technical expertise questions. And I do think that the board would be wise to do that.
Well, I spend a lot of time with our engineer's review of this, and your engineer just said I was correct. The site is
That's not exactly what I said.
poorly drained in half of it,
I said it's poorly drained, but that does not mean that the water table is less than 3 feet.
okay?
Mike, what is your assessment?
So the answer on the part one, which they provided, says 2 to 4 feet. So I had put, no to small in my. I'm not a bit here, but I'm taking it based on the part one, which is how this board.
I think there are other parts of this form where we can address the stormwater impacts, if that's what your concern was, Terry.
No, I'm just trying to answer the question, that's all.
Okay. So I think we should mark this as small impact and look at the other sections here. Do you have?
Okay, the proposed action may involve construction on land where the bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of the existing ground surface. I did not understand the reference on ESF 1 that your answer was 0 to as in 20 plus minus 4 feet. What does that mean? 0 to plus or minus 4 feet.
That the bedrock varies on site with different levels and different soil types, anywhere from 0 to 4 feet.
Okay, thank you.
We skipped letter B.
Okay, but that one.
Yeah,
B was.
B, I saw no or
B
small
was no
impact on
impact,
it.
yeah. And so what was your assessment of C, Terry?
C is no or small impact.
Okay, great. And then D.
D was no impact.
Impact,
E
yeah.
was no impact. F, G, no impact.
Okay, so the construction is proposed to be less than a year?
Or in multiple phases.
How long is construction?
Yeah, we're doing less than a year.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
And then what, F? Did we get to F yet?
No, we did not.
May result in erosion. I said no or small impact.
Okay. Would that encompass the tree removal? That section?
Yes.
And remember, Zach, as we discussed, if anybody disagrees with somebody who took the lead on a certain section, we can vote, or you can vote.
Yeah.
It's also important to remember that these questions, when you're asked them, erosion, for example, when you say no, that's also taking into consideration the mitigation we are providing, right? So we have an erosion and sediment control plan and a stormwater pollution prevention plan. Those things in there have various mitigation measures that will be conditions of the project, which ensure that there will not be any erosion, post-construction or during construction.
Okay, understood. Were there any other impacts, H?
Nope.
And then we skipped over letter G, but it's not a coastal erosion.
No, it's not a coastal erosion area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the next one, impact on geological features. I answered no based on part one, which is E to G, which is on page 11 of the PDF.
Okay.
I had impacts on surface water. The proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies? And I said, yes. However, wait a minute, okay, I said yes. Okay, let me go through it. We'll create a new water body? No. Increase surface water by no. C is no. D, I have a question mark. Proposed action may involve construction within or adjoining a freshwater or tidal wetland or in the bed or banks of any other water body. Why did I question that? E2H.
There are no wetlands on site.
I wonder what, one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies it would affect.
Yeah, there are wetlands on the property site and
So no, in the part one.
the only wetlands that are nearby are to the north. And I believe even with the DEC's proposed buffer area, it still doesn't rise to the level. Which, by the way, for the board, Charlie will know this, was overturned last week by a judge. So we're back to the old wetlands clause for right now.
Okay. All right.
And I just attended a seminar with people on it today. So.
Okay, I have no problem with the D, that's a no.
I think the larger question is for number 3, because there are no surface waters or wetlands on the project site, can we just say no to that entire question?
Yeah. Not yet. Let's go to F. The proposed action may include construction of one or more intakes for withdrawal of water from from surface water. Aren't there intakes on the underground storage?
That question refers to wells drawing water from the surface.
Okay, then the answer there would be no. Okay, you're right. So the impacts on surface water, overall, number 3 should be no, in my opinion. Okay, makes sense. Thank you for your help in that. And I have impact on groundwater, and there I have overall no.
Yeah.
The proposed action may result in new or additional use of groundwater or might have a potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or the aquifer, and I said no.
Would that count as, municipal sewer system, with bathrooms?
Nope, this is only impact on groundwater, just on groundwater.
Yeah.
You had 5.
I had 5 also, which is the impact on flooding. I again said that there was no impact there.
Would this be the place to talk about the parking lot in the northeast corner that you mentioned earlier?
Maybe I mean, it gets confusing to me as we go through the ESF, when we're supposed to talk about the site plan and when we're supposed to talk about this, so
Flooding is in relationship to being in a flood zone, which is not on this property.
Right.
No.
And, okay.
I got number 6. Impacts on air. I wrote no, based on part 1, D2F, D2H, and D2B, which is on page 6 of the PDF.
Moving on to number 7, impact on plants and animals.
That's me too.
Oh,
Sorry. I checked it as yes, based on part 1, E2, and Q, but I ultimately said no or small impact for each of the questions.
Okay, yeah, was there any mention in our environmental consultant studies of endangered animals on property or certain bats using those trees?
There was not, there was the DEC flags wide areas, so yeah, I would agree with Nikki's take. The only one I had a potential question on is with the removal of trees.
Right.
But that can be mitigated by cutting during the allowed cutting season, so.
I thought it was mitigated and also that a lot of them had been marked as dead.
Not the trees that are going to be where the building is, though. A lot of those trees were still green in the PDF that they have.
Okay, but Mike, overall, you would suggest that we,
I had no for everyone. G was the only one that potentially, because of the Indiana bat, but as you know, was said, the mitigation is that you only cut during when the DEC allows it, and that's fairly well documented by the DEC.
Jen, we have notes on the plan requiring
okay. I think we would say no to that one then. Impact on agricultural resources.
I technically have that one, but I think we established that there's no farming on the site, so.
That was a no.
I had 9, impact on aesthetic resources. That one I said, yes, because I think a building and a little more.
So let's go through each letter.
Yeah. Proposed action may be visible from any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource. I said moderate impact because historic Huguenot Street is, according to E3H, historic Huguenot Street is a designated resource.
As well as the rail trail, right?
As well as the rail trail.
We also may want to ask, and I have no idea if it is visible, from the tower.
Oh.
I have no idea if it is or isn't. I'm not saying it is or isn't, but we may just want to ask that it be addressed in some manner.
What tower is?
Oh.
The bridge. Think of. The municipality.
For B, I said no or small impact, not too much construction. For C, 1 and 2, I put moderate to large impact. It would be visible from the street and the rail trail.
Yeah.
For D1, I put no or small impact. But for D2, I put moderate impact. It would be recreational or tourism based activity. For E, I put
well, I mean, I guess I would kind of push back on 1 because I think there are a lot of residents on Huguenot Street that would be, impacted by it and drive by it
that
on
would
the
be the
day.
situation or activity in which viewers are engaged while viewing the proposed action is routine travel by residents, including travel to and from work. The historic Huguenot is a residential road as well. You're right about that.
So I think both of those could be moderate to large.
E, proposed action may cause a diminishment of the public enjoyment and appreciation of the designated aesthetic resource. This is a contentious one. I did put moderate impact just because there's a big building going into the middle of a field that I've seen people walking dogs and being in, so it would change what you're enjoying. It would diminish the enjoyment of the field and possibly increase the enjoyment of the building. So,
as well as the rail trail, I would say that, people who are using that.
It's also just a May, so.
And it's a May,
Yeah.
it's not. Again,
The what?
The question that says it may.
May cause.
Yeah, and I think, just so you know, what we'll do is clearly aesthetic resources is one we're gonna hone in on in our next submission. And I think, again, looking at those DEC workbooks with some mitigation, we can really clarify these. So this is a very helpful exercise.
Sure. For F, I put no impact. I don't think there's any other projects. The other buildings are blocks away. And no other impacts for that one.
Okay, great.
I also had 10, impact on historic and archaeological resources. May occur in or adjacent to a historic resource. I think that is the whole point of it. So yes, it will occur. And for A, B, and C, I put moderate impact for all of them because it's pretty much asking it'll happen in historic placed in various different ways.
And just to clarify, the C, they asked to identify the source, and the source would be state historic preservation is the source.
Okay, so you agreed, Mike, that,
I agree with all what he presented.
right,
I just wanted to point out that on C,
There's a source.
there's a source to be identified, and the source is state historic preservation.
Thank you. No other impacts for D, but for E, they asked if any of the above were answered, moderate impact to answer these. So E1, I put no impact. Proposed action may result in destruction or alteration of all or part of the site or property. No destruction of any of the property as far as I'm aware. Proposed action may result in alteration of the property setting or integrity. I put no impact for that. I'm looking at the rest of the historic buildings in regards to that.
I guess I don't quite understand that question, though. It result in the alteration of
property setting.
Yeah, I had moderate
I
to
would-
large,
yeah, I would
because
say
it
moderate.
is changing you're changing the current site by building the building.
Yeah.
So change the setting instead of
Yeah.
integrity. Okay.
And this, yeah, this is a very specific setting with this, preserved group of houses that, form.
Yeah, I had moderate for all three.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I guess alteration.
I would agree with
part of the
that.
site makes sense. Yeah, I
Okay.
put moderate for the third. as well. I'm sorry.
I say, yeah, how's the rest of the board feeling on, I? Because it seems like that's the one that maybe is. There's,
The first one, E1, proposed action, destruction or alteration of all or part of the site or property.
Yeah.
I would say it's small impact for that personally, just in terms of the historic lens, just because it's, as has been noted, the least archaeologically sensitive part of the property. But
I think that makes sense.
I mean, Mike, what was your?
Yeah, I had moderate just because I was looking at it as the alteration of the property. Is you're building a building where there's currently no building. That was just the way
Existing building.
it doesn't mean that it's gonna. The board has to view it the way I did.
Well, and I saw it the same way. However, the question is phrased, I think, poorly. Because the alteration, in my mind, is a positive. It's not a negative. So yes, it's being altered for the better.
Well, and that's where, when we get into our submission, we'll talk about the mitigation we're doing to take these moderates from moderate to small. And that mitigation is abiding by the Department of Interior standards, getting our SHPO approval, getting all of our approvals and showing that we won't have a negative impact. And that will come through when we start citations to the EAF workbooks. But again, continue, it's.
Yeah, and all those mitigation measures that they're gonna then propose would be useful in compiling the part 3, which is the next step, which is where you have the verbal discussion of the moderate to large impacts.
Sure.
And you say they either can be mitigated or you think they can't be mitigated, and here's why and how. So, as I said, it's up to the board. I don't disagree with what Terry said, but I do say it is an alteration of the property. I don't think just because it means it's for the bad or for the good. It's just saying it's happening.
I'd be comfortable doing moderate.
That's just my opinion.
Okay, yeah, that's what I would lean towards as well then.
So E1?
Yeah,
E1, 2, and 3, moderate.
and then I guess I wanted to ask if there was a way, maybe in other impacts, I think, one really unique thing about this site and this area is the streetscape, that uniquely preserved streetscape. Could we add other impacts if the proposed action would alter a historic streetscape or I'm not really sure how.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
Phrase that.
it gives you that option by
Okay.
having a spot for other impacts, and I think that, if that's something that you consider a moderate to severe impact, then that's something that you can, specify in the EA part two.
Yeah.
In 15 years of doing this, that's the first time I've seen someone use the other column.
I'd say that is.
The record is broken.
I would also consider that in other places.
You mean moving that specific
That
concern to
concern
other?
to another.
Yeah, okay,
But
that's
generally
true.
needs to be addressed.
That's true, yeah. There are, I think, parts later on that.
If you're using the word historic streetscape, then this is the place to put it. If you're removing the words historic, then there are other places in my opinion.
Well, it is a historic street, so.
So you can add in multiple places. And just remove the word historic.
On the drawing, so it's-
Okay.
It's 9:30, I'm-
Yeah.
But if you are gonna add it, you should decide if it's no or small or moderate to large.
We'll include it in other sections then.
Okay.
Okay, so not in this.
Yeah.
section.
Who was on?
I also had 11. I put no for this just because it says, introduction of an open space resource as designated in any adopted municipal open space plan. And when I looked at, I think it was C2C, it said that there was no specifically designated municipal open space plans. So there is an impact on open space, but not in the type restrictions that this question is asking.
Okay. Mike, what was your?
Yeah, there is no open space plan. I did check yes, but I would be in agreement with the reasoning that you just gave, because I don't believe the village has an adopted open space plan.
I mean,
And that is a key element of that. The only one that I thought could potentially rise would be letter D. Because the green area is used currently for a lot of community events. But I definitely would agree that it's not an adopted plan.
Well,
And 11 is pretty specific about it being.
what about the like village master plans that have been?
I went back and looked through it. Admittedly, I didn't read every single page of it, but I did some skimming through to try to find anything about open space and did not locate anything about open space.
Well,
The town had an open space.
Town does, yeah. And that would-
2000s, and if you could say it's covered, but I don't, it was predominantly used with respect to farmland preservation.
Yeah, and it's also, just to highlight, this is, again, private property. It's not public recreational area. And historic use of the grass field, Marietta.
It hasn't been used by the public. It's just, it's that grass field that just grows up. And it's, so that people don't walk their dogs through there because it's tall grass.
Yeah, and I would doubt that any spaces in the village were designated in the town, but I can't say that with a certainty.
I mean, does this have to be like specifically highlighted, because the master plan does talk about the importance of open space, be it public or semi-public or private. So, I mean, I do think it's kind of important that we talk about the impacts
It's not
of that.
designated open space, it's still open space.
And if we can find a way to, see how the master plan can apply here, I'd like to do that.
It says I'm looking at the workbook, and comprehensive plans are allowed to be used, in this situation. In terms of, determining whether it's part of the plan or not. Obviously, this specifically says open space, but, the workbook does specify that master plan feels incorporated that, that's comprehensive plan as well.
Okay.
I'd be comfortable making that a yes.
Yeah. Say yes, and then D would be, the other ones are small impact, and then D would be the moderate to large impact.
I can do some more research on the plan and see what I can find in there for you about open space.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable. No impact until D, which would be moderate. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I can save you on 12, the village doesn't.
Yeah, I know, that was mine.
Oh, I got the same one.
I got it. But I'm still here.
Did you tap no on D? Proposed action may result in loss of an area now used informally by the community as an open space resource?
No, we said moderate to large.
Okay, good. Okay, I agree with that.
Who was doing number 13?
Rachel.
Rachel, do you want to go through number 13 with us?
Sure. Well, I mean, insofar as the action may result in a change to existing transportation systems. I don't know. I mean, you're gonna have a bunch of buses coming through there. That's in addition, it's not a change to an existing transportation system. It's just an addition of more transportation, more traffic.
In
And
defense of Rachel here, this might be a good one to wait until you get that revised traffic report.
I think so too.
Yes, we can hold off on that section.
I don't know what the relative, did I also have 14 impact on energy?
You had 14, 15, and then Zach had 16 through 18.
Sort of out of my bailiwick here.
I think Mike can
I
also.
could help you out on that one, Rachel. I have a yes on the impact on energy, but then I have no or small for each category of the subcategories. There will be an increase in energy usage with a new building, but none of them rise to the level of none of them will, the questions that have been asked would rise to the level. It's not gonna need substation or anything like that.
It's relatively insignificant. So no. I don't know. I mean, same with noise, odor, and light. I don't odor. There are not going to be any lights on at night there, I'm assuming.
Well, I don't know if that's been determined yet.
Then we can hold off on that.
I don't think we have a lighting plan, and also we have others. Okay. Does it say what happens with the parking lighting at night? Will there be light entering the neighboring residences at night?
Yes, so we're proposing, there are lights in the parking areas and along the walkways, because there will be times when the facility is open, certain times of the year where it's dark out, so you need to be able to provide light for them to get to their vehicles, but once the facility is closed, the lights will be on.
So that's why one of the reasons the gates are functional, because no traffic can go in when we're closed, and then you don't need the lights then.
And all lighting will be downward facing, dark sky compliant, which is our mitigation measure for that, to ensure that no small results.
And on timer, so that when the facilities are closed, those are off.
Got it.
Yeah, I had a yes for the general question, but then no or small for each category.
Um,
The board agrees. I don't know
Yeah.
if the board agrees, but.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I agree.
So we have 16, 17, 18, Zach, you're up.
So impacts on human health. I believe that was a no. Did anyone else have a different assessment of that? So number 17, consistency with community plans. Proposed actions not consistent with adopted land use plan. I would say yes, moderate to large impact for 17. For A, Proposed actions, land use components may be different from or in sharp contrast to the current surrounding land use pattern. I think, yeah, based on the EAF and the proposal, that is a large impact. B will cause permanent population in the city or the village to grow by more than 5%, no. Inconsistent with local land use plans and zoning regulations. I would say no, although I think there's still some outstanding questions about use, which we are going to get more information on. D, proposed action inconsistent with any county plans or other regional land use. Actually, that's, okay, that's the one I wanted to say no to. I wasn't aware of any of these plans that was inconsistent with. However, when we look at the local land use plans, specifically the comprehensive master plan that the village has adopted, that does have a strong focus on preserving open space and preserving specifically the Huguenot Street area. So I actually think that is a moderate to large impact.
I'm doing a word search right now and I found 38 places where the word open is, but in many places it's open. So open space.
Here, let me read one quote I have. All proposed new structures would need to be sensitive to existing community character. This would include maintaining the existing proportional relationship between buildings, open space, and setbacks. The color, height, materials, and facade treatment of new development should not dramatically contrast with the predominant style of adjacent buildings. Buildings should be inviting both in scale and form.
But so that's community character, not community plans. Like the points on that, the point in 17D is inconsistent, or C that you were talking about is proposed action is inconsistent with local land use plans or zoning regulations. And I don't think it is inconsistent with zoning or land use. If you want to debate in 18, the consistency, the statement that you just read is about consistency with communities' character and design, which I also.
Fair enough. I guess I'm a little unclear on whether, like, when we're supposed to be taking the master plan, does that consider a local land use plan, or is that just?
It typically is, but I think that Nikki's getting to an issue where, we don't necessarily want to count something twice. Is that correct, Nikki? Is that sort of what?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna raise it, raise it next, and it's specifically goes to design and all the aspects of community character. And I don't think it's wildly out of scope with the land use plan or zoning regulations. It is permitted as a land use and a zoning regulation. That's why they don't need a variance.
I think that's what the zoning laws say.
Yeah, I agree that it's.
I definitely see where you're coming from as well, Zach.
Zoning.
But I also do think that, the point is that they mitigate that impact. So, as long as we check it as a moderate to large, and it's.
So we're mitigating the impact that we're not consistent with zoning regulations?
Well, no, what I'm saying is Zach's primary concern is really about the scale, and that's why he believes.
Right, and I think that understood, that I agree that conversation is a community character conversation.
Yeah, no, I'm actually trying to support you in this direction.
We'll move that down to community character, and then so both C and D, 17C and 17D would be no or small impact.
Zach, I did just find in the master plan. I don't know where the urban lands are, but it talks about the village should ensure a continuous network of open space is established throughout the urban lands. But I have no idea where those are, so my apologies. but it's specifically named in the master plan. So,
I think it might be farther down Huguenot Street.
I can do some research, but
Yeah,
it's the only specific reference I can find to anything that says it should be kept open.
okay. Were there any other ones from this section, like that you had as a moderate impact?
On 17,
Yes.
no, I had them all as no or small.
Okay, I would still say that A would be a moderate.
Whatever the board thinks, yeah.
The board's okay with that, we can move on to 18, our last section, Nikki. Consistency with community character, proposed projects inconsistent with existing community character, I would say, moderate impact here again. And A, may replace or eliminate existing facility structures or areas of historic importance to community, moderate. B, no impact. C, no impact. D, may interfere with use or enjoyment of officially recognized or designated public resources. I think the rail trail is an example of that, as we heard from the public tonight. So I would say moderate as well. Inconsistent with the predominant architectural scale and character, and that would also be moderate. And
I'm fine with putting moderate, but I do want to note my earlier from last meeting that I am very much struggling with the fact that we have a whole body of design recognition and jurisdictions that say that it shouldn't necessarily be the exact same. We heard from the archaeologists or anthropologists that it should be different. We're dealing with a number of different designs on the street. And so which design do you, if you're trying to make it consistent, which design do you go with? And so I understand how it's inconsistent, but anything is going to be inconsistent. And I'm concerned about what our jurisdictional obligations are, given the number of different review boards and historic preservation and all of the different guidance that gets put here.
I mean, first, I was at that meeting, the HPC meeting, and I was very disappointed actually with their analysis and review. I felt like they did not actually do what this board asked them to do. They did not look at specific standards. They kind of discussed irrelevant things. One of the members had not even seen the plans. He had no comment. One of the members was concerned with the scale. I don't think that was reflected in the memo. One of the members was just mostly talking about the existing candle factory that was there 50, 60 years ago. And so I do feel like there's more review needed. And look, we can go through some of these guidelines from New York State for new exterior additions and related new construction. Recommended using the same forms, materials, and color range of the historic building in a manner that does not duplicate it. Okay, this building has wildly different materials and forms. Perforated metal. Where is that on Huguenot?
Well, I just have a question. Is it that you don't believe the HBC, which is the village's governing body, it's the Historic Preservation Commission, right? This is what they're charged with. What it is sounding is like is you don't agree with them, right? Which is fine, but that's not to say that they're doing their job.
Analysis.
Well, they're not done yet either, right?
That's what they specifically
The
said.
memo said they're
So
full
we
project.
can't rely on that memo.
And we've had more meetings with them than we've had here, and many more hours with them. The meeting you attended was one meeting, out of many months of meetings.
And I believe there was a joint meeting with the HPC that you weren't in attendance at.
There was, and I reviewed that footage, so I'm aware of what happened at that meeting. I still do not think that they have looked at these standards that they should be evaluating building, so.
Well, bear in mind, you know, at this point, you're checking a box that is saying it is either no or small or moderate or large. The mitigating factors of the review by the other boards, at least in my opinion, would be addressed in the part 3.
Okay.
I would agree that it is a moderate, that it isn't consistent with a predominant architecture scale. These are supposed to be looked at very black and white. It either is or it isn't.
All right.
In my opinion.
Let's do that. Let's mark it as moderate, and then we can get into more of the details for the
Right.
part 3.
Because the part 3 deals with how is this gonna be addressed? It's either, it can be the applicant has supplied information that it will be addressed in this manner. Which is where all the additional board's comments would come into the part 3.
Okay.
As you're involved in
And
interested agents.
so is this the time to ask for some like guidance or legal guidance? Like, again, it's not just the HBC, it's SHPO, it's the Federal Register. I am really struggling with how much, you know, I don't have a design expertise. I am not an architect. I like the building. I like the other buildings. That's not what I'm here for. It's like to understand what I'm supposed to decide, and that I do not know.
Understood, yeah.
So in our response, and we've already started this research, we're gonna give you an overwhelming amount of legal information as to what the parameters
Just
are.
bring it on. I'll take all the keys like that.
Yeah, in my opinion, once again, I think this question, the fact that you are inconsistent with the architectural scale or character of a visitor center in an historic site, that's by design. That's not a negative thing. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
I think the problem.
Okay.
By making it a moderate, you're not saying it's a negative or a positive. You're just identifying it as that it's a larger scale.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have to.
It's basically a
Figure it all
0 to 4 scale. As you're working your way up.
Okay.
And this is saying it's a 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
I mean, Agway's on the corner, guys. Like, let's just be very realistic.
Salvation Army.
Salvation Army, you know,
Salvation
the,
Army.
on the corner here, like. I haven't, I mean, I understand the desire. I would love to see something better than the Salvation Army, but I think it was the original Agway when we were kids. But I think that from, again, and this is why it's objective, and this is why I want guidance. I'm fine. I think that is an improvement. So and that's not that's not the standard I'm being asked to judge here. And so that's why I want guidance,
Yeah.
because when you look at the Historic Register and SHPO and HPC, that's where I'm drawing expertise. And so I want to know what a village planning board member has as jurisdiction when you have all of these other people who get to weigh in. Notwithstanding that we're a lead agency, I want to understand what my standards are.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely put together some guidance for you. Zach?
Were there any, before we move on, were there any other impacts that the board wanted to mention for community character number 18?
Well, I think, I mean, one of the things that I'm anxious to see is since the my misimpression that there was not going to be any change in intensity or frequency, and now there will be. I'm gonna wait to see all that before I can comment on that and a lot of other things, I guess. I mean,
No, this gives us a good starting point to respond to some of the concerns that we heard this evening.
I would also in your other impacts, but this is where I would put the streetscape issue.
I was also thinking about the large driveway would, bring it back to the rail trail, it would change. And right next to each experience of
The rail trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to mention all the parking that's right along there. Would that be in character, Lori, or should that be in some other like
Probably under
recreation?
I would say, as far as the character goes, just if you look at it, there's a bucolic character to the area, and this adds an urban element to an area that's basically that in that section of town is bucolic. That's just as a general statement.
I think Salvation Army is on its own.
Item 11, Zach, is recreation.
I like that, so bring it on.
Impact on the rail trail.
I like it.
Okay.
I like this urban.
Okay, yeah, how would we, I would say proposed action, yeah, may result in or decrease of an enjoyment in rail trail. Decrease in.
Wait, what does the Salvation Army have to do with it?
It's in the neighborhood, Rachel, that's all you need to know.
It's 500 feet away.
I can't really see it from there.
So are you?
Okay.
Are we adding that in there?
Yeah,
Proposed action
Like a decrease in enjoyment, you can say more.
yeah,
will decrease the enjoyment of the rail trail.
right.
And
Or increase the use of the rail trail.
It's about, I don't know, I think. It's also nice to have those batteries close to it.
Yeah. With all the apartments that are connected to it now.
Restaurants to the radio.
I'll use those.
Okay, I believe that's all we are gonna do with part 2 tonight. We look forward to getting the traffic study and the other materials from you and.
But
we'll
please,
see you
if
next
you
time.
just like be succinct to the uses. You can have supplemental, but it would just give us like the bullets.
Thank you for your patience. I think we really got a tremendous amount of work done tonight.
I will take this and put together a new clean copy based on what the board decided tonight.
Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?